Will the cool and showery weather ever end? Why has the weather shifted from the hottest June on record to a very showery July? In this week's Met Office Deep Dive, we will be focusing in on the jet stream. Welcome along. Thank you for joining me. My name is Alex Deakin. I'm a meteorologist here at the Met Office, working at Met Office headquarters in Exeter. And you are watching the YouTube even, exclusive Met Office Deep Dive. This is only on YouTube, so if you've not seen it before, make sure you hit subscribe. We have recently hit 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you very much. Myself and Aidan and the rest of the team, because it really is a team effort here at the Met Office. Really do appreciate that. And we love your comments. We do read them as well. So please keep your comments coming in. Keep your suggestions coming in as well. Anything you'd like us to cover. We've had a few comments about the jet stream, which is why we're going to touch on that a little bit more in today's episode. Please share the love as well. If you know any other Met heads that haven't heard of the Met Office Deep Dive, then let them know about us as well. Hit the like button. That will also do us a big favor so we can keep doing these because we love doing them. So again, thank you very much for watching. Right, let's get into it. As you can see behind me, lots going on. Big swirls on the satellite image. You've probably noticed it's been a week of heavy downpours. It's been a month of heavy downpours, hasn't it? July has been very different to June, and we'll touch on the reason behind that in just a moment. But first of all, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the rest of this week, because it is going to get pretty lively. You can see there the swirls there. You can guess, even without the pressure pattern on there, that low pressure is dominating our weather, and that is certainly the case at the moment. This is the picture at time of recording on Tuesday afternoon. The jet stream moving across the UK, taking this low pressure system with it. We'll take the jet off for now. Plenty more of that in the coming 20 minutes or so. But that low pressure system just spiraling around it, bands of showers. Tomorrow, the same low has started to drift away a little bit more. Let's just zoom in a little bit there across the UK. The low pressure is starting to pull away. So yes, still lots of showers on Wednesday, but by the time we get to Thursday, well, that low has drifted further away. Not saying it's going to be completely dry, but if you're after a dry day this week, Thursday is your best bet. There will still be some showers around, but generally speaking, that low is pulling away. However, it ain't going to last, because if we just play through Thursday and into Friday, then eyes back out in the Atlantic. This is an area of low pressure. This is an area of low pressure, and they are just chugging towards us during Thursday night and into Friday. This one in particular needs watching. Again, we'll have more on that in a moment, but that could turn into quite a nasty little area of low pressure coming into the southwest during Friday and even into Saturday. Look, they've merged together into one area of low pressure. That is not a pretty weather chart if you've got plans for this weekend and they involve being outside and you don't want it to be wet and windy. That is a pretty brutal area of low pressure sitting across the UK, bringing a spell of wet and windy weather. So yes, showers for the next couple of days, and then potentially a spell of wet and windy weather, keeping a very close eye on that low as it develops towards the end of the week. So if you've got plans, as I say, make sure you keep up to date with the forecast. Okay, let's dig into a bit more detail over the next couple of days. I mean, it's hard to put detail on because it's basically showers for the next couple of days. But as I said, some pretty heavy ones around close to that low. Remember, there's the low. You can see the circulation there. So especially close to the low across northern Scotland, some intense downpours developing here. The winds are pretty light, and so the showers are slow moving. We've also got potentially some sea breezes so the breeze coming in like this, but the sea breeze also coming in like this. And where those two hit, that's called a convergence line. And that is developing some pretty intense showers this afternoon across parts of Scotland. So that is something we're keeping a close eye on, as I say, through the rest of today. Heavy showers across especially Scotland, where we had a lot of heavy rain through last night, but those showers will keep on coming. More showers also coming in here across Northern Ireland and into parts of southern Scotland overnight as well. Pause it there, zoom out, because actually for the south, the showers will fade out overnight. So actually here, there is a decent chance that tomorrow morning across the Midlands, eastern England, you may well wake up to some sunshine. However, it doesn't last. There's low pressure. Even though it's pulling away, it's still in control. So the air is generally going up. That's what happens in low pressure systems. The air is rising, and that causes further showers to develop. Now, they're going to be scattered across the country tomorrow. Again, northern Scotland will be a focus for them, but elsewhere there should be a bit more in the way of breaks in the clouds, so a bit more in the way of sunshine between the showers, but there will still be plenty of them coming and going throughout the day. And if we just pause that there, fast forward to Thursday, it's a very similar story. Again, many places will start dry with some sunshine, but we are going to see some showers developing through the day. Now, Thursday is your best bet for a dry day, particularly for the likes of Wales and southwest England, because as that low is pulling away, you're going to see more showers closer to the low, hence why eastern areas will see some. But in the west, Thursday, a better chance of a dry day. Now, exactly where we're going to see showers over the next few days is really hard to pinpoint. And the reason behind that is to do with the way that the computer simulates them and generates the weather in general. We use grid boxes when our computers generate the weather, and the size of the grid box generally determines how more accurate the weather forecast is. But showers, the problem with showers is that they are so small, they are generally smaller than the grid boxes within the computer models. So they're really hard to pick out. So that is why computers struggle with exactly where and exactly when we're going to see showers. So we know there will be showers, but pinpointing them exactly is almost impossible with these with the computer models that we have. So that is why at this time, when you've got a showery setup, looking at your app is not necessarily going to be that useful. It's not going to tell you exactly when and where you will see a shower, but there is something on our app that you can look at that will help you. So if we just have a look at our app, where is it? Up here. Ignore that chap, he's not going to help you either with exactly where and when the shower is. But if you go to our weather app and go to Maps, so if you press the button at the bottom under Maps, and then instead of going to the 5-day forecast, actually if you go to the last 6 hours, press that button there, then that will give you a radar. That will show you a radar of where it is actually raining now. And that is useful to scroll to and from to see exactly where you are. So if you are just heading out and it's a showery situation, I say don't necessarily rely on the symbols. They're not going to necessarily help you. That guy isn't going to help you very much in telling you exactly where and when it's going to rain. But that radar is a really, really useful tool for seeing where the showers are now and if you're about to get hit by one. So I would recommend over the next couple of days, it's called nowcasting because that's kind of what you have to do with showers and these heavy shower situations, and this week is perfect for that. So make sure you're giving yourself the best chance by looking at the right tools for the job. And on the Met Office app, go to Maps, say go to the last 6 hours and you'll get a radar of actually where it is raining now. And that is a really good tool. Not a lot of people know that. Okay, so that's the forecast for the next few days. Basically dodging the showers, low pressure in control, lots of showers. Thursday, a better bet of a drier day, particularly as I said over, let's move through Thursday. Yeah, these western parts, so Wales, southern England, but even further east, the showers won't be as intense. There won't be as many of them on Thursday. But then, well, the weather could get pretty tasty on Friday, as we saw earlier with that area of low pressure developing out to the west. Let's take a look at that in a bit more detail now and see why we're seeing. So this is the situation at the moment, low pressure jet stream like this. But actually I want to take you over the other side of the Atlantic to developments over here, because this is what's going to trigger that low pressure system that's coming towards us on Friday. Those low pressure systems, I should say, that's coming towards us on Friday. This is the setup in the United States and Canada at the moment. Big low over Hudson Bay like that. Let's take the jet stream off. Put the temperatures on, because it has been pretty sticky, pretty humid air across much of the southeast and the eastern seaboard of the US, and that's pushing up into eastern parts of Canada. This low pressure system here, if we put the surface winds on, driving that hot air further and further north. So we're pushing very warm air up across eastern parts of Canada, and up here, as you might imagine, over northern parts of Greenland, even though it is summer, there is still some pretty chilly air in place. So we're going to see this warm air clashing with this cooler air, and that contrast will pep up the jet stream. It's going to drive the jet stream and intensify it. And as that warm air pushes up, this low here, the jet is moving up, and that contrast is going to intensify the jet stream. If we just play through it, well, let's just jump forward actually, and you can start to see that jet. Let's take the temperatures off. That's it. So the jet stream is pushing up here, but then it's going to pick up, it's going to intensify as that warmer air in here hitting that colder air here. It's that contrast that starts to drive the jet stream. We get an intensification of the jet stream. and it pushes south, and it's pushing south through Thursday. By this stage, of course, our current low is drifting away, but it's this low pressure system and this one down here that's being affected by another little arm of the jet stream. These are combining, and it's in here. We've got a breeding ground for intensification. We've got low pressure system breeding ground, and these two are going to kind of merge. Because the jet stream is dipping down like this, we call this a trough. That is going to intensify these low pressure systems. Now, because they've got two low pressure systems, exactly how they combine with the jet will determine which of those lows really does intensify and how they merge together. So that is why there's a bit of a question mark at the moment about how strong the winds are and the timing of the wet and the windy weather coming in from the west, because it does depend on what's going on in the United States and then how these two combine with this low pressure, with this jet stream pushing its way south and this trough as they come towards the UK. If we just play through the rest of the sequence, you can see, actually, let's zoom in a little bit. Take the jet off for now. You can see these two. There's that one low developing close to the southwest of the UK. Let's pause it there because this is Friday, middle of Friday. If you look at that, that is quite a nasty area of low pressure. Lots of isobars on the chart there. That would be unseasonably windy across the southwest. But equally, if this one develops a bit more and this one doesn't, then the winds here wouldn't be as strong, but the winds here and perhaps then across parts of Ireland would be a little bit stronger. So that's why we need to keep a close eye on it. Now, this is just our computer simulation of what's going to happen. Of course, it's not necessarily useful just to look at one computer model run. We can look at one computer model run and many times, and that's called an ensemble forecast, and that generates something called the postage stamps, which we've seen before here on the deep dive and in the 10-day trend. Now, I appreciate you can't really see that very well, but this is just an idea of what's going on. So we run the model many times, different members, and they're all saying slightly different things about Friday. Let's just pick a couple out here. So this is member 23 and member 29. Apologies, it's a bit blurry, but hopefully you can still make out that the low pressure system in here, knew it was going to do that, is generating a little bit more. The one to the west of Ireland, the one to the southwest isn't as intense, but this one here is really intensifying that one down to the southwest. If this were to happen, that would be unseasonably strong winds across the southwest. So we look at a broad range, an ensemble forecast, and that gives us a better idea of the probabilities of the forecast. So something, as I say, we're keeping a close eye on because of that interaction with the jet stream, just how things will develop, because it could be very windy on Friday across the southwest, and then that wet and windy spell spreading across much of the UK. So as I say, keep up to date with the forecast because there is the potential for some disruption from this low pressure system coming in during Friday and Saturday. I'll have more in that in the 10-day trend tomorrow. We're doing that and we're looking more detail. We'll know a little bit more. We'll have 24 hours more information as well. So we should know a little bit more about the likely time and intensification of that low pressure system. But it's something we'll be keeping, as I say, a very close eye on. And all to do with the jet stream and the interactions with the jet stream. I'm going to focus in now a little bit more on the jet stream and talk about what it is and why our weather patterns have shifted from June to July. And that's basically to do with a shift in the jet stream. For most of June, so this is June 2023, the jet stream was in kind of this position. This is obviously a schematic. Obviously, it wiggles around day on day. It's not constantly in this position. But broadly speaking, for most of June, the jet was up here. It was taking low pressure systems. It's a conveyor belt, the jet stream, fast-moving ribbon of air high up in the atmosphere, and it takes low pressure systems along with it, generally to the north. So Iceland was getting hit by a lot of low pressure systems in June. In this area here, we're on the warm side of the jet, and that's where high pressure was dominating across the UK, hence why it was generally a very sunny month and an incredibly warm month as well, the warmest June on record. Since then, almost exactly on the last day of June, it's probably the 27th, 28th, wasn't it, started to shift, because the last few days of June were pretty showery as well. But the jet has shifted south, and it's more barreling in across the UK. These little dips generate low pressure systems that take them across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but their weather fronts have been dangling south, and it's just been generating showery rain across a good part of the UK, bringing reasonably cool conditions as well, but only in comparison to June, because when the weather system is coming in from the Atlantic is actually quite warm. The seas are quite warm, particularly at the moment. So not generating anything in particular especially cold, but it feels colder, mostly because June was so very, very warm. And this graphic backs that up. In fact, we had a comment, I just want to, Karen Slimming 1280 commented on my 10-day trend last Wednesday, saying this must be the coldest July ever seen, or something like that. And there's been a lot of comments about it's been incredibly cold July, but it hasn't really. If you look at how the temperatures are progressing, they are just close to average. Now, yeah, admittedly last week, and actually to be fair to Karen, when she made that comment, we were probably in this dip of blue, so it was below average. But since then, the temperatures have actually picked up a little bit, and we're actually currently running very close to the average line for July. But of course, because June was so very warm, it does feel that much colder. But actually, we're pretty close to average in terms of temperature so far. We're only a third of the way through the month, and so it's really hard to draw conclusions. But so far, I'd say we're pretty close to that average line in terms of temperature. Rainfall, that is perhaps a little bit more interesting in the fact that we are now above average. If I press the right graph, that would help. This is the rainfall. So this is the cumulative rainfall through the month. So this black line here is the average. Sorry, I should have explained. These are the dates going along the bottom here. So we're up to this. The data includes yesterday, so it includes the 10th. And we've seen actually until recently, until 2 days ago, we were pretty much bob on average. But the last couple of days have seen that big rise. And actually, we're not far away now from the 90th percentile. So 2 or 3 days of heavier showers can really make a big difference. But again, that just goes to show how we shouldn't read too much into these stats at this time, because we're less than a third of the way through the month. So 1 day of heavy rain could really make a big difference. But it goes to show it is currently running wetter than average so far this July. But temperature-wise, nothing too remarkable, fairly close to that average line. But it does feel a lot colder because June was so very, very warm. So we talked a bit about the jet stream and that change in position of the jet stream. It's moved further south, and there aren't really any signs of it changing too much, even into next week, keeping things pretty mixed, keeping low pressure systems coming our way. What I want to talk about now is a little bit about how low pressure systems are developed by the jet stream. Because the jet stream is high up in the atmosphere, right? 30,000 feet, 10 kilometers up. How does that impact what's actually going on down at the surface? Now, there's a really good video on our sister YouTube channel, Learn About Weather, how jet streams affect our weather. So that is a really good watch. I'm going to try and explain a little bit about that now. So, you know, this is the science bit. Pay attention, and we'll go into a little bit of detail about how what's going on way up in the atmosphere can affect what's going on low down at the ground. Okay, let's start with the jet stream and start with the isobars. So we're used to the isobars down here, aren't we, on the surface? We know what that equal lines of pressure down at the surface. So that's what these white lines represent. But you can have isobars at any level up through the atmosphere. So if we go high up where the jet stream is, let's say 30,000 feet, 10 kilometers up. These are isobars high up, and you've got high pressure here to the south of the jet, and low pressure here. This is the cold side of the jet, this is the warm side of the jet. Don't worry too much about the map and the positioning, this is just a schematic view from high up looking down. And in here, where these isobars are squeezing together, we have a strengthening of the jet. So this is what we call a jet streak, an intensification of the jet. So the jet is pepping up here. Another way of thinking about it, we come back to here, it's the pinker zone in here. That is where the jet is at its strongest. So the jet stream, which is a ribbon of atmosphere, a fast-flowing ribbon of air right around the globe, it doesn't travel at the same speed all the way around. It has faster zones and it has slower zones. And it's that acceleration and deceleration that are crucial. So this pink zone in here, call it a jet streak, where the jet is suddenly accelerating across this little area here. That is what we are representing by this red zone within here. You with me so far? Good. Which means that the arrows, the winds, if we put these on, let's take that off now, that little jet streak. So the winds here are not going as fast as the winds here. So the winds in the middle of this jet stream are going much faster. They're going faster than the winds here, which means you've got to have acceleration. So if the winds are going in here and they're going faster here, you've got to have some form of acceleration. And that is caused by a force, and it's generated by this pressure force, the pressure difference between high and low pressure. If you think about it, if you've got high pressure here and low pressure here, if there wasn't anything stopping the two things mixing, you'd expect the breeze or the wind just to even things out. So that you'd normally just think that the winds would flow from high pressure to low pressure to try and even everything out. But they don't flow that direction. They flow in this direction along with the isobars, and that is because of the Coriolis effect. So we have to add up those two forces together. Let's take that out. Take that out. Let's put a wind arrow on here. So these are the winds entering the jet, and as they come along this line here, there is a force from high pressure to low pressure. That's the pressure force. So that is the pressure force from high pressure to low pressure. But there is also an equal and opposite Coriolis force. Because the Earth is spinning, we have a Coriolis effect. Without that, you wouldn't get the winds travelling along the isobars. So the Coriolis effect is vital. And when those two are in balance, we call these winds the geostrophic winds, and they travel along a jet stream like that. But in this section here, they are going to accelerate, as we've talked about. Because that pressure gradient is stronger, they will accelerate, which means the pressure gradient is actually a little bit stronger. So there's a stronger push this way. The Coriolis force takes a little bit of time to catch up. So because they're accelerating, they're being squeezed into this jet stream, that pressure is a little bit stronger, so that pressure is a little bit higher. So there is a bit more of a push this direction. This force takes a little bit of time to catch up. When we get in the middle, they'll be equal again. But because of that slight delay, at this point here, at the entrance to the jet, that force is a little bit stronger. That means you are actually going to get a bit of air movement going across the front of the jet. We call that the ageostrophic wind because the pressure force is a little bit stronger here. Let's take those off. You actually get a component of force going along this way, and that is called the ageostrophic wind. Now, because of that little bit of force going that way, what we see is that in here, let's use the little hashed boxes, shall we? We call this an area of divergence. So the air is diverging away from here, and here you get a build-up of air in a little zone called convergence. So the air is diverging here and going across because of that difference in the force. And at the opposite end, the opposite is true. So we actually have an area of convergence here and an area of divergence there. So the air is going the other way here because coming out of that little jet streak, the winds are decelerating. So they're going slower here than they were here. I hope you're still with me. As I say, there is a better explainer on YouTube if you want to go into more details if I've lost you. So you can take your time watching it. But that is broadly speaking why we have these sections of the jet stream. And these blue areas where the air is drifting away are breeding grounds for low pressure systems. Now the reason for that is we have to look slightly differently now at the other angle. So we're looking down here, the air is diverging here and diverging there, converging the red zones. But in this area, we call this a right entrance to the jet, and this is a left exit from the jet. So the air's going in here and out here. So this is the exit, that's the left exit. This is the entrance, that's the right entrance. We've got divergence here and divergence here. Now, if you think about this map, this graph, where you've got divergence, now we're going to go up and down in the atmosphere. So this is the top of the atmosphere. Oh, let's not do it in that. Let's do it in lines. Now we've got a column of air. So again, ignore the map. This is the ground, and this is the top of the atmosphere where the jet stream is. We've got that divergence at the top. So the air is drifting out from here because it's diverging, splitting up. Now, because of that, the air is going to naturally start to lift and be drawn up from the surface. So you're going to get a natural cycle of the air coming in and going up like that. And that is basically, because you can see this air being drawn up from the surface, how low pressure systems are formed, or the pressure certainly drops at the surface in those areas of divergence. So at a right entrance to a jet or a left exit from a jet, that is where you get pressure lowering, because the air is lifting up, because the air is diverging. So that is why in the 10-day trend last week we had a comment. Oh, look at that. 10-day trend last week, there's the jet. This is a left exit, but also there's another part to the jet here. And we had a right entrance and a left exit combining together, which is where that low pressure system that were called Storm Polly by the German weather service that barreled into the Netherlands and created really strong winds. And that was all to do with the dynamics of the jet. And that is how the jet, even though it is 8, 9, 10 kilometers up in the atmosphere, can affect the weather patterns at the surface. It generates low pressure systems, it intensifies them, and it spins them along as well as pushing them along, because the winds are so very strong. Hope I've explained it a little bit there. I hope you understood it. If not, we'll pop in the chat a link to this video in which my colleague Jodie Ramsdale wrote and narrated this beautifully, and my colleague Mark Machin made some wonderful animations. So there's lots more in that video if you want to understand a little bit more about jet streams and how they affect pressure patterns. But we've had a lot of questions about them, so I tried to deal with it a little bit there as best I could. As I say, go and watch that video. It's only 6 or 7 minutes long, but it really does explain a lot of things about the dynamics of the jet stream. Okay, I think that's about it from me from this week's deep dive. Hope you've enjoyed it. As I say, please keep your comments coming in. We do read them. We love them. And any suggestions, anything else you'd like us to cover in a deep dive as well. I know there's been a lot of comments about El Nino, and that is something we'll be really trying to dig, trying to cover in future deep dives. So I know there's been a lot of comments about El Nino. We will try and cover that in one of these deep dives. Just trying to get everything together at the moment. Not impacting the UK weather yet, but it could have impact over the winter months. And believe there is a Met Office blog going out about that either today or tomorrow. So if you search for Met Office blog on Google, you should be able to find that. We might even be able to put a link of it in the chat as well. So yeah, look out for that, but we will hopefully cover that also in a deep dive coming soon. But anything else you'd like us to cover, keep the chats coming. Please do share this if you've enjoyed it. Please let me know if it was too complicated for you, if I didn't explain it very well. I'm not a teacher, but also let those comments, would love to read those comments as well also. So yes, do let us know, share the love, do hit like and subscribe. And I was going to say, will it be me? No, I think it'll be Aidan next week. He'll join you for another deep dive this time next week. But thank you very much for watching.